What was so special about this huge painting that it almost landed its painter in prison? Paolo Veronese had some serious explanation to do as he was summoned by the fearsome Holy Inquisition in the early 1570s. In this video, you'll learn all about his trials and tribulations and how it was surprisingly easy to wiggle himself out of it. This is the place where you can admire Veronese's enormous work of art, and that's where he painted it as well. Venice is a magical city where you can find some of the largest canvas paintings in the world. The 16th century was without question the Venetian golden age when it came to art production. Bigger was definitely better, and the likes of Titian, Tintoretto and Paolo Veronese were racing to complete the largest painting in the world. Tintoretto eventually won with his enormous Il Paradiso, a canvas that is almost 25 meters or 82 feet wide. Although Veronese's version of the Last Supper is only half this size, it's still about 13 meters or 42 feet wide. That's still significantly bigger than his Wedding Feast at Cana, which is the largest painting in the collection of the Louvre in Paris. Veronese almost paid the ultimate price, so let's dig a little deeper so you can learn all about this remarkable event in art history. This painting was completed in 1573, and it was one of multiple similar banquet scenes that the Italian painter completed in his career. The Feast in the House of Simon and the already mentioned Wedding Feast at Cana were both painted before he completed this equally monumental work of art. What's interesting is that the commission in the early 1570s only came about because of a calamity. Like most Last Supper paintings, it was commissioned to decorate a refectory wall of the main Dominican church in Venice. This 15th century brick building is called the Santi Giovanni e Paolo Basilica and is located in the eastern part of the city. Veronese's painting was commissioned to replace a Last Supper painting by Titian, which was destroyed by fire in 1571. It doesn't hang in the church anymore, but some of his work can still be admired in the beautiful Chapel of the Rosary, for example. So first of all, why was this painting so enormous? Yes, it had to decorate an entire wall, but this wasn't the only reason. Very few cities in the world feature such a massive amount of architectural highlights as Venice. This was possible because the naval endeavors of the Republic of Venice brought back a lot of wealth. All these buildings had to be decorated, of course, and painters were competing to earn commissions. The result was paintings that featured a combination of splendid colors and monumental settings that reflected the grandeur of Venice at the time. Although it's unrelated, the size of paintings by Veronese and Tintoretto, for example, bear some resemblance to the Race to the Sky in New York City in the 1920s. It wasn't all about painting the most beautiful picture, but also about painting the biggest one. I think Veronese had an amazing time painting as many curious characters as he could. As you'll soon discover, that's exactly what got him into serious trouble. When the Italian painter picked up his brushes a decade earlier to paint the Wedding Feast at Cana, he was almost given 100% freedom. The Benedictine monks who commissioned this work simply told Veronese to include as many people as he possibly could. The result was a chaotic and overcrowded party that also featured the painter himself in the center, playing some type of violin. Apart from his payment of 324 ducats, the contract also stipulated that he had to be provided with a barrel of wine during his work. As you can see, he probably enjoyed a glass every now and then while he worked on this immense painting. About 10 years later, not much had changed when it came to private commissions. Paolo Veronese was once again given the freedom to paint whatever he wanted, something he clearly enjoyed tremendously. Now let's take a closer look at the details of the painting discussed in this video. The first thing you notice is that Veronese included a magnificent architectural background. The enormous pillars featured the distinctive Palladian architecture that was popular in the Venetian Republic in the 16th century. The polychromatic decorations feature winged symbols of victory on top of what almost appear to be Roman triumphal arches. It's simply an incredible setting that was conceived by Veronese because he was given such great artistic freedom. This is a pretty important notion for the rest of the story. Now let's look a bit closer at the bottom part of the painting, which only covers about a third of it. Because there are 3 sections, the painting looks a bit like a triptych painting with 3 panels. Jesus and his closest disciples sit in the central opening, and even this section is as chaotic as it gets. There's a dog in this section, as well as a cat playing with a bone. Social interactions intertwine everywhere, and through the commotion, Christ emerges as the focal point of this colossal canvas. We are directed to him by two large staircases on both sides, which, just like every other part of this section, feature colorful figures. Two people cleverly cover the massive pillars, and this provides some fluidity between the three sections. The man in green is likely the man who is in charge of the party. It's hard to say that he's doing a great job, isn't it? The look on his face and the erratic gesture with his arms pretty much confirm that he might be a little stressed. This might be because of the man covering the other pillar, probably the host of the party. He clearly doesn't look happy, and he has good reason for it too. Just below the man in charge, a jester and a servant are fighting for a parrot, and one of Jesus' apostles is picking his teeth with a fork. They clearly ran out of something. These people hanging from the sides are scrambling to get something above. Even in the background, people are hanging out of their windows to see what's going on. The dark sky indicates that this is a dinner party at night, so it remains unclear where the source of light is coming from. This detail indicates that realistically depicting a banquet at night wasn't Veronese's main aim. On the right side of the painting, servants are extremely busy passing along plates full of food and pouring wine. The German soldiers on the staircase got a plate of food and were probably happy to drink some wine instead of beer. Upon completion, Paolo Veronese probably got the shock of his lifetime as he was summoned by none other than the Holy Inquisition. The 1570s was the decade following the conclusion of the Council of Trent. The most prominent figures of the Catholic Church met on numerous occasions in the northern Italian city between 1545 and 1563. The reason it took so long was that they had a lot of things to discuss regarding the Protestant Reformation. This major theological event had started several decades earlier and was already widespread across Europe. In short, without going into too much detail, the Holy Tribunal's main aim was to ensure that Venice didn't become a Protestant stronghold. The Venetian Inquisition wasn't as strict as in Rome or Spain, for example, but I'm pretty sure that Veronese was pretty worried when he got the news. After all, being tortured was still pretty common and not really something to look forward to. If they deemed his Last Supper painting to be heretic for some reason, it could even result in a death sentence. With his knees shaking, Veronese was interrogated thoroughly by the Inquisitor. He was asked why he included a jester, German soldiers, and even animals in a Last Supper painting. He replied promptly, saying he simply added them as ornaments wherever he had some free space. There was plenty of that in a painting of this size, so he added dozens of fictional characters. To further justify the inclusion of these figures, Veronese stated that they didn't really interfere with the central part of the painting. The members of the tribunal had a stern look on their faces as they read the verdict. This was the moment that Veronese probably started trembling. After all, he might be hauled off to a torture chamber in just a minute for painting some funny figures. Surprisingly, the conclusion was that the painter was a free man, and Paolo considered himself to be the luckiest man in the world. He was, however, required to make some changes to the painting to make it more suitable as a religious work. He had 3 months to erase the dog and the German soldiers. He also had to promise that he would never be funny again. Veronese probably had a 2.5-month party after his trial because he never made any substantial changes to the painting. What he did, however, was to change the title of the work to The Feast in the House of Levi. He also added an inscription to the pillar, referencing this enormous banquet scene in Luke's Gospel. The monks who commissioned the work were very pleased with the result, and Veronese was extremely happy that he wasn't being strapped to a medieval torture device. Who would have thought that this story was going to have a happy ending, considering the notorious reputation of the Holy Inquisition? I think Veronese was quite lucky that he lived and worked in Venice instead of Spain at the time. Unfortunately, their fear tactics worked, as this was the painter's final large banquet scene. Luckily, he didn't make the required changes, so we can still admire the original work at the Galleria dell'Accademia, a popular museum in Venice today.